Hi everybody, today we are going to do some woo-woo medicine. We're going to make liposomal vitamin C, or for the Americans in the audience, liposomal vitamin C. So this first bit is really just prep, because the ingredients have to soak for a little while before you add them together and do the liposomal magic. So this first little bit is super simple. One of the things I would encourage you to do when you're doing this is to put a cloth or some other covering, something you don't really care about, on your counter, because ascorbic acid or vitamin C is going to stain or pit or otherwise cause damage to your surface. So always use a cloth for all the parts of this process will be my recommendation. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get some room temperature water. Now you want to make sure it's not hot, because vitamin C starts to degrade in hot water, so you don't want it hot, you want to keep it room temperature. So here I've got room temperature water, and I'm going to put half a cup of it in the Vitamix. Oh, I did that without spilling it. And I'm going to put our vitamin C, the links for all of these products are below to make it easy for you. So I'm going to put the vitamin C in here in the blender. And then I'm not going to do it because video and you don't need to know how to turn a blender on, but you're going to blend that for about 5 minutes. Vitamin C is incredibly difficult to dissolve, but if you blend it for 5 minutes, that will certainly help as much of it to dissolve as possible. So you're going to put your vitamin C crystals in your room temperature water, put the lid on, and you're going to blend that for 5 minutes. If you have a high-powered blender like a Vitamix, you want to be careful not to do it any longer than that, because if you know, with these machines they get hot, so they will actually warm it up if you leave it on too high or too long, and you don't want that. So really, you can leave it, if you have a high-powered blender, you can leave it on the very lowest setting. You just need to agitate the water. That will help to dissolve as much of the ascorbic acid as possible. I'm going to turn that off simply because you don't need to sit and listen to that. So now in this jar I'm going to put the rest of the water, and into there I'm going to put our sunflower lecithin, again links below. And this you're going to shake like the dickens. Until it looks like all the lumps have gone. But what you're going to do with this, because lecithin also takes time to really homogenize with water, you'll see that there's still some bits there. So we're actually going to leave that for about 4 hours to soak, to make sure that the lecithin is completely dissolved in the water. So we've got two things here. We've got our sunflower lecithin soaking in a jar there, and we've got our vitamin C crystals, which we're going to blend on low for 5 minutes. And then in 4 hours we're going to come back and I'll show you how to do the liposomal magic. Hey everyone, so it's been several hours now. I have blended the vitamin C crystals and the water. I blended it for about 5 minutes on low. You've got to make sure that the liquid doesn't get hot because that will ruin the vitamin C. And you'll see that it is mostly clear now. It does take a long time to dissolve, and there may still be a few that aren't. Well, you can't worry about that. So your vitamin C water solution is clear. Over here we've got our lecithin that we have soaked in water. Give it a good shake, and then you are going to, and I actually use, when I finished it, I put it back in this bottle, so you don't need to clean this, you don't need to dirty something else. I'm going to pour my soaked lecithin in with the vitamin C, and then I am going to blend these two together, again on low, so that it doesn't get hot, just on the very lowest setting if you have a high-speed blender, for 5 minutes. So we're just going to blend for 5 minutes, and then I'll come back and we'll show you the really magic part of where the vitamin C becomes wrapped in the lecithin. Hey everyone, so our lecithin solution and our vitamin C solution have been blending on low for 5 minutes. They're not at all warm, which is good. You don't want it to be warm because warm will destroy the efficacy of the vitamin C. So I'm going to turn that off. And now here's the magic part. So a few folks that have read the recipe in my blog, and the link is below, so you can go and you can follow these steps through step by step. There's a lot more notes than I've covered here too, so I highly recommend that you go read that post and read through the recipe before you try this. But some folks are confused about the use of a jewellery cleaner, and I actually had someone email me and tell me how terrible it was that I should be encouraging people to drink jewellery cleanser. So this isn't cleanser, this isn't a liquid, this is an actual machine. And it's what makes this a jewellery cleaner is the fact that most people use an ultrasonic device to clean jewellery, but you can do all sorts of things with this. They're just known as jewellery cleaners because that's typically why people buy them. What's magic about this is that it's ultrasonic, so that's the piece we want. So obviously I would never recommend that you use, if you already have one of these that you clean jewellery in, I wouldn't recommend that you use that for this. So I got myself a brand new one. I ordered it when I started making liposomal vitamin C. I got myself a new one. It lives in my kitchen with my Lipo C supplies, and I use it exclusively for making liposomal vitamin C. But and why you need one of these is because of the ultrasonic waves that it creates. So that's why you need this, and nothing else will do. So I'm going to plug it in, and you'll see that the light comes on, it goes blue just when it's lit up, this model anyway. In the post and below I will link to all the things so you can easily find it, so you don't have to go searching, you know which one to buy. If you have a large family or you're planning to make a lot, you might want to get a bigger one. But for me, this is the size that I use. So I've got my liquid here. You'll notice that it's pretty frothy because it's been running on low for 5 minutes. But I'm going to pour that in here. And you'll notice that that amount in the recipe perfectly fills this particular size of machine. So there it is in there. And I'm going to shut the lid and I'm going to switch it on. You will hear a little humming. This automatically switches off after 3 minutes. So you can just leave that running now for 3 minutes. When it's done, it will switch off, and then we'll move on to the next part. So that's essentially all you do. This is actually very, very simple, and I know people, it's so different to them using a cleaner and mixing their own alternative remedy at home is, so I know that a lot of people will find this video helpful, even though it's very, very simple to actually do when you see somebody do it. So, and it doesn't really matter, you can leave the lid open, but you can close it. I typically close it, but I don't know if you can see on the video, but you'll actually see that the liquid is actually moving in there. The ultrasonic waves are actually making the liquid move. So what's happening in this process is that the lecithin, the sunflower lecithin, the ultrasonic action is wrapping, lecithin is fat, so it's wrapping the fat around the vitamin C molecules that are dissolved in the water. The lecithin is wrapping itself around those, and the ultrasonic action is what's binding the lecithin round the vitamin C. And what makes this so magical, that's why it's called liposomal, lipo for fat. It's wrapping the vitamin C in fat that comes from the lecithin. So hence liposomal. Why that makes this and all liposomal solutions much more effective is that the cells can absorb almost all of it. When you take normal vitamin C that is not in a liposomal form, your body actually can only, your cells can only, I want to say ingest, but that's not the right word, absorb. Your cells can only take in a certain amount if it's not wrapped in fat. So that's one problem. The other problem is that if you take a lot of vitamin C in a regular form, it will give you chronic diarrhea. So you can't actually superdose with vitamin C in regular form, because once you take an amount, you have diarrhea, then you have to stop. This, you can take huge amounts of this in this form because it doesn't give you diarrhea, because it's all being absorbed into your cells. When you take the other form of vitamin C, it's not being absorbed, and so it's in your gut, and then the diarrhea is that this water is being sucked into your bowel to dilute the vitamin C, which is what gives you diarrhea. This doesn't happen with that because it's almost all absorbed out of your gut into the cells where you can actually use it. So one, you absorb like far more than in a non-liposomal form, but also once it's in your cells, your body can utilize it much better than in another form. So you don't have to have as much of this in volume as you do in regular vitamin C, but you're actually getting hundreds of times the dose. So you can superdose really easily and without any problems. So the little beeper went off there. So I'm going to open it up and I'm going to give it a stir. Now, because the inside of this thing is metal and we're using ultrasonic waves, you want to stir this with something wooden, or at least something that is not metal. So I just use the handle of a spatula to stir this. I'm going to give it a good stir, and then I'm going to put it back on for another 3 minutes. Now you'll notice the cloth I have here. So vitamin C or ascorbic acid can stain, and it can also damage porous surfaces. So I highly recommend that if you like your counters, you don't let that liquid come into contact with counters. So that's why I've got this board down and why I've got this cloth down on top, so that any spills from the vitamin C mixture don't damage the countertops. So once that has gone through twice, I'll just leave that till the end, then you're going to take the jar that you had your lecithin soaking in, and you're simply going to transfer this into there. So you have one less thing to clean up. You're going to put the lid on and you're going to store it in the refrigerator. Your liposomal vitamin C will keep for at least a week in the fridge. Dosing. Somebody emailed me and asked me you know, how much vitamin C is there in, you know, a quarter of a cup of this? And I have to tell you that I don't know the answer, but I actually spent a long time, hours and a lot of hours, maybe even days, trying to figure out how much vitamin C there was in any particular dose of this liposomal vitamin C. And there was a lot of math, and I'm okay with math, but I still couldn't work it out. And I researched on the internet for doctors and other folks that have made this in the same way, and tried to, and I actually asked several of them. I emailed several doctors that use this as part of their practice, how to work it out and could they work it out, and none of us could actually come up with a really kind of black and white hardcore answer about exactly how much vitamin C there would be in a dose of this. So if that's your question, feel free to research on the web, but after spending a long time and emailing with a lot of doctors who do this, I could not come up with an answer. I just know that it is way, way more than you will be getting in non-liposomal form, way, way more than if you're using capsules or, you know, effervescent tablets or whatever else. So that's gone off now. So I'm going to give it one last stir here. I hope this is helpful. I hope it helps to see someone actually doing it in a jewellery cleaner and you're not just reading it and going, that's too weird. Because this is one of the things that has really, really been life-changing for me, is being able to superdose with vitamin C. Now, bear in mind, I'm not a doctor. I have no qualifications in doctoring. I'm not a naturopath. So what I'm sharing with you is simply something that I have done and something that I have used that has consistently provided a really clear benefit for my health. Whether it does the same for you or not, I don't know. There are a growing number of doctors who recognize the efficacy of superdosing with vitamin C at certain times. There are also still a number of doctors who think that vitamin C therapy is dumb, but I have read enough online to know that it is a thing, and I also know for me that it's a thing. I consistently, when I have, you know, started feeling something, I had a very strange, a couple of years ago, I had a situation where I came down with, it wasn't flu, but I felt really, really ill. I had a really odd cough. I had a pain in the side of my head. I had a fever, and I felt awful. And I kind of struggled along for a couple of days. I'm not one of those people that likes to take antibiotics or OTC medications or, you know, all of those things you can get at the pharmacy. I'd rather just see if I can ride it out. But after a couple of days, I was so ill, I couldn't get out of bed. And my girlfriend, bless her, came over to my home, and I taught her how to make liposomal vitamin C, and she made a batch for me, and I drank, I want to say, half of this in one hit. And within an hour, I was feeling at least 50% better. I could sit up in bed. I was just, and so that I kept drinking this for a couple of days afterwards, and whatever it was that I had, it cut it dead. It just stopped it. And I've used this various times when I've been feeling under the weather or when I've actually got a cold, and I have found dramatic relief from superdosing with vitamin C. And I have now thousands of readers of my blog and people in my Facebook groups who have found the same benefit. So whether it'll work for you or not, I don't know. Some doctors say it'll help you, some doctors say it won't, but I would say suck it and see, because it's really helped me and a lot of others. The easiest way I found to get it out of the jewellery cleaner is to use a cup, and then of course your half cup or your cup measures are the easiest way. If you try and tip this up when it's full, you're going to have a big mess. And you're going to end up having to make yourself another batch of vitamin C. So this is the way that I do it. So there's least mess. And then when you get down to the last little bit, then you can just tip the rest in. Pop the lid on and into the fridge it goes. Now you don't have to wait, you can take some of this immediately. So what I normally do is on a daily basis, I would normally take about 1/4 cup. If I'm in a crisis situation, if I'm not feeling well, if I've got flu, if I've got a fever, I would take, as I say, when I had that really bad fever 2 years ago, I drank half of that in one hit, and then a few hours later the other half, and then went back to my 1/4 cup a day after that, and I found that did the trick for me. So a couple of notes. Key things: don't allow this to get warm at any point. Don't allow it to get warm because the vitamin C will be deactivated, destroyed. What was the other thing? Airtight container in the fridge. Oh, so let's talk about what it tastes like. So if you've ever had grapefruit juice, unsweetened grapefruit juice, kind of, it's like that, only on steroids. Really, really, really sour, but 1/4 cup is not a lot. So what I suggest you do is approach it like a shot. So either do it in this or put it in a little glass and then just chug it back, because it's not something you actually want to sip or drink like a drink, because this stuff is, as I say, it's like unsweetened grapefruit juice on steroids. If you've ever had that, it is sour. Always rinse your mouth out after you've taken it, because even if you do it like a shot and you miss most of your teeth and mouth, you don't want that ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, you don't want that on your teeth. So when you've had your dose, just rinse your mouth out with water, or take it before you're going to brush your teeth. Just make sure you rinse your mouth out well after you've had it. You don't want to dissolve the enamel off your gnashes. So that's it. It's really simple. There's a few steps, but most of them are just a little bit of mechanics and then waiting, and then the last piece when you put it in the cleaner. And there's your liposomal vitamin C. So for one person, I think at 1/4 cup, yes, so at 1/4 cup a day, this one batch would last one person 6 days. So there's basically a week's worth in there, one batch. So if there's 2 of you, 2 batches a week will keep you going for a week. If you have a lot of you, or you prefer to are you going to use it up quicker, then you might consider getting a bigger model. But for me, doing a batch a week is easily doable. There's very little hands-on time. It's all just mixing and waiting, mixing and waiting. So there it is. There's your liposomal vitamin C. I hope that it helps you to get relief from what ails you. And don't forget to click on the link below to go to the blog post and read through that blog post before you get started, just to make sure you got all your ducks in a row.